let's get back to where we were yesterday. And maybe I could ask that my laptop be projected up on the screen. Let me get back to the right slide. Yes. I'll put it like that. Do I need to go to, I need to put it on thing, presentation? Yeah. Okay, good. Yes. We had some very nice discussion yesterday where we took a lot of comments. This was one of the marked up slides that I had yesterday, showing various options. The first bullet there, of course, was the original statement, the current statement in version 3 of the policy framework. And towards the end of our discussion yesterday, it transformed a bit into the last bullet down on the bottom. Knowledge base digitally empowered, and we were wondering about inclusive and equal and so on, although I didn't notice a misspelled leadership there, but that was me typing. Let me go to the next slide, which kind of cleans it up into two options that maybe we could consider if we want to say go forward with something. Okay, so the first bullet there is the one that was at the bottom of the previous slide. And then there is another statement which is almost the same, except it seeks to maybe keep both ideas of equal and inclusive. Oh, and our equal and inclusive, our proponent is not in the room right now. So are there any objections, or, and I'll phrase it that way, because we're looking for not necessarily the perfect wording, but we're looking for, for something that is acceptable to all. Yes, Jacqueline.
Based on the comments yesterday, if it's equal, then inclusive is not necessary. So I don't know if equal and inclusive would work.
Okay. So the thing is that equal included inclusive.
If everyone is equal, then there's nobody outside the circle. Then there's nobody outside the circle that you need to include.
Okay. My only concern or thought, not necessarily concern, is that, right, I guess was that, does equal include inclusive, if it would incorporate that idea and whether it would be obvious to people. All right, so, well, then we could probably just take one of the descriptive adjectives from up top. All right, but that's really the only issue raised so far. Oh, she's just come in. Maybe we could get your thoughts on this particular point, Deidre. The suggestion was made that if we have equal, we don't need inclusive.
I would agree with that. Equal means that inclusive has been done already.
Aha, okay. Okay. I understand. Okay. All right, good. Well, then it'll be more like the first bullet where we include equal rather than inclusive. Yes.
inclusive would not match. Because of the SEO, search engine optimization. Remember, it's not human beings that will be finding these policies. It will be search engines. So if you remove the word equal, you wouldn't be able to graph it with gender equality and a lot of words that are based on equality.
We were leaving in equal and taking out it inclusive.
Same thing. You got to leave both. You have to overload it because of how the search engines work. If we were looking for it, we can put English meanings to it. Creatively speaking with the right brain. But the minute you eliminate a word, you would have eliminated the search engines graph like the Google bot and the Bing bot that already graphed inclusive and equality and a whole series of words like that. Because I've had situations like that where you remove a word and it just drops in the search engine.
Right. But
So
the context of our statement, of course, will you be, well, I guess you can't say you won't be searching for it, but yeah.
Yes, for research purposes.
All right. But I mean, equal and inclusive isn't objectionable from the point of view of the principles that we're talking about, right? So maybe if we're saying we want to, so what we're looking for is not redundancy. What we're looking for? Overemphasis, and overemphasis. You know. Yeah, when you want to overemphasize something, you know.
Yes. Overload.
All right. Let me show you what went on with the other thing. We had a lot of discussion about the mission. There was a, let me go back. I forgot one thing. And I can't see it too well. Let me see if I escape here for a second. No, I lose it when I escape. How come I wasn't losing it yesterday when I escaped? Sorry? Oh, yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, I don't get the display. Yeah, somebody put it on extend. Yeah. Okay, right. Thank you. Right, at the bottom of this particular page, you see the word collaborative there. So that concept of collaborative came up, and I think we said we would put that in the mission. So if I go to the next one, let me go back. What's happening here? Excuse me a second. Right. And I go forward. The idea of collaboration would permeate the mission statement by putting it, I remember there was a discussion, right, and if you had sharing and collaboration, the idea was there, and the thinking is to put the word collaborative into the chapeau to develop and maintain appropriate regional multi-stakeholder collaborative frameworks, mechanisms, blah, 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 and procedures to enable. So from that point of view, then one might take out I crossed out the reminder to include something related to sharing and collaboration. Let me go to the next slide, which should be a little cleaner or a little different, how should I say, incorporates a different idea. On this slide, in terms of the reading of what was there was a discussion yesterday about enable, ensure, blah, blah, blah. Two other words are for there, achieve or provide. In terms of the first sub-bullet, which deals with the infrastructure, we were saying high capacity national and regional information and communications infrastructure, which I do have a problem with. Linked to global, and I would say information and communication resources, which would include the internet as well as other things that are not the public internet, other facilities that are not the public internet. Let me leave the second bullet for a second. And the second bullet really was to recognize certain points that were raised. We were thinking of creating a bullet that dealt with the human resource capacity and retaining the resources, right? Developing and retaining the resources. But looking at the third bullet, which where you're looking to enable or achieve ample supply and capacity for the creation and distribution of content and technologies. In reviewing this, I was second guessing myself. I was saying to myself, but isn't that concept already in there where we want to have ample capacity for? Isn't that where the HR development is incorporated? So do we actually need a separate specific bullet related to HR? When we have a statement about developing the ample capacity for the creation, use, and distribution of things, that we always have an ample supply. Well, no, sorry, the supply really relates to the content. So I'm open to chat, to comments. Yeah, we're really supposed to have 2 mics. I see one.
It
Oh,
could,
there it is.
what I say is that supply and capacity would, in general, yes, include human and other, whatever the resources.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of pulling it out would be to say that this is extremely important. This is something that we need to work on specifically to raise the importance of the idea of building human resource capacity and keeping it here in the region. So if we think that that is something that has become a priority, then it might need to be pulled out into its own bullet point, and not just as part of, yeah, we will need people to do content and technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need people to do more than content and technologies. We need people, if we agree that we're having a capacity issue, we need people to do more than content and technologies. We need people to do governance. We need people to do so many other things. You see what I mean? So it's up to the room to decide if you think it's important enough that it be pulled out into one. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, particularly. I was just explaining why I think it would be there as a point, as a bullet point on its own.
Then one would have to reword the third one to exclude that HR aspect, and it would be just what to enable. What would you enable? Can you
ability?
Can you separate the content from the creation? I definitely had a little challenge with that one. Oh, but in any case, remember, we're not making a final decision at this thing, right? But so if anything that we can't specifically work out right away, then we could take it forward.
Nigel, supply of what?
I'm sorry?
Supply of what? Ample supply and capacity for, but ample supply of what? What do you wish to be supplied with?
The supply relates to Caribbean content. Ample supply of Caribbean content, or there is capacity for creation, use, and distribution, also of Caribbean content. Right? So the HR capacity is in there. The skill you want to develop, that's the capacity for creation, use, and distribution. I do have a pointer. Yeah. Let me see if it comes up. No. Yes, it might come up. No. I see it on my screen, but I'm not seeing it on the projected screen. Anyway.
So that people can hear you online.
Oh, I was just thinking in terms of how it's phrased.
Yes, I hear you.
Capacity for creation. You would create first the content and the technologies. And then you would either supply, use, and distribute thereafter. Not so? I think it's the way
Yes,
it's
I know. I
phrased,
understand what you're saying. It's just I'm just trying to reword. If I were to try to reword it,
I think you're
then
trying.
maybe you would have to break it into two.
I think you're trying to capture supply. Well, create, supply, use, and distribute the Caribbean content and technologies. Correct? Am I reading that correctly? Is that the thought behind it?
The capacity part governs the creation, use, and distribution. We need to develop the skills for creating, using, and distributing the content, right? And so it really is two things that maybe, that's what I say, we would have to split out. We have to split out the two, and I'm not sure we will find that the supply stands on its own.
Can you do capacity for creation, use, and distribution of an ample supply of Caribbean content and technologies? That gets rid of my problem about what the supply is about.
Right. Okay, I understand. I understand what you're saying. So an ample supply. So pull that out, kind of turn it around. I saw a hand in the back as well.
Yes. Can I just? Oh, it's off the board.
No, it's not exactly. It's there, but yeah. Go ahead.
Let me just.
Oh, yes, it is off the board.
Let me just mention something. I think we have to look at it sometimes in terms of the investment, the investors, because what you have there, you know, with anything that deals with policy, one also have to look at the World Trade Organization agreements that all the countries sign in the Caribbean, all the countries sign in Africa. At the end of the day, it's based on the General Agreement of Trade and Services, GATS, WTO GATS. So therefore, there are four major steps: make, manage, market, and monetize. This does not include the monetization of it, which is very important because that's what creates the sustainability under the UN SDG goals. So I think in terms of how you define it, you have to define it in such a way that it's sellable. It could be, so that when an investor reads that, they know that this is something that is a solid definition of what they are getting involved with. So in that case, one can have a statement for those who make content. That's a separate issue. Those who manage content, okay, that's the cloud people. Then you have those who market content. Then there's the final people who monetize the content. So it's called a digital M4 process: make, manage, market, and monetize. And those could be four separate statements because they will involve four separate digital workforces, which is called a digital workforce. Every one of those silos can generate a huge number of jobs that can be done either here in Trinidad or anywhere else in the world using Caribbean make capacity, or Caribbean management capacity, or Caribbean marketing capacity, which we have a lot of with Carnival and reggae and soca and so on and so forth. It's part of the creative economy. IT is now part of the creative economy. So that's why when one defines it, one has to define it based on your agreement in the World Trade Organization, which we signed in 1995, which is called GATS, General Agreement of Trade and Services. That's how it bubbles up to the top. Under the UNDP, under UNESCO, and under every single department or ministry of trade and investment.
Thanks for that. That introduces a whole new idea, actually. And I don't understand why my thing is disappearing.
Hi, morning, everybody.
Pull up the display for me. You know what I'm talking about? It unextended again. Go back to what you did. Windows on.
What was it? Windows on P.
Well, yeah, F8 would work too. It's going back to extend. So oh yes, please.
So I want to just speak to the number 3 and number 4, right? Just to follow on from what you were suggesting just now, where there's the 4 stages. One of the critical areas that has been left out there is the demand for content. So if there's no demand, then nothing else would work. You could create content, you could have all the distribution systems in place. But if you don't have, whether it's local telecommunications distributors, etc., providing the opportunities for local content producers to actually air their content on the television stations, on the internet, etc., then everything else is going to fail. So that's one thing. The other, for bullet number 4, I think, which is to do with a vibrant digital economy. I was hoping that you all could explain a little bit more, bring more clarity to what you mean by vibrant digital economy. Because we could have content coming in the country, we could actually have trade where it's one-sided. So I could get content from the US, the UK, etc. But we can't put out content that's monetizable and actually get money coming into the country that actually makes it viable for the model to work. So I think there needs to be some clarity as to how the trade flows work, because as I said, it's going to be one-sided at this point.
Okay, point taken again. So maybe we need to develop some more the whole idea of the trade aspect of the digital economy. And I'll take note of your words. Make something, market, and monetize. What's the second one? Manage. And then we had this discussion about vibrant. What does vibrant mean? And is it one-sided? Put a question on vibrant. Question mark on vibrant. Right, okay, so I don't propose to solve this now because we are only at, we wouldn't have enough time to try to get into it. I think what we'll do is deal with it in the next steps, which I'll repeat again shortly. And we have 2 things. One relating to maybe reworking this bullet about ample supply and capacity to turn it around. And secondly, or break it out into 2, one related to the content itself and one related to HR, the HR development. But I think all the ideas are there in terms of what came up from the floor. it'll come back probably either by mail or on the website in terms of requesting your. Oh, by the way, it occurred to me that please make sure that for everyone attending that you would have left your email with us, because what we do is that we update our distribution list each CIGF. We always get new people, right? So, and we use the registration lists to do that. So please make sure that, especially if you want to be kept in the loop in terms of some of these developments, that you would have registered and left your email address with us. Let me go to the next one. So that one has some hard work in it still. The guiding policy principles, there was a question yesterday about what about collaborations outside the CTU? And I actually took a little time, went back to the policy framework to see where we might have taken that into account. But there wasn't, when I say outside CTU, I mean outside the other Caribbean countries that are not members of CTU, right? The policy framework wasn't prescriptive in that sense. It just said Caribbean. So I would say it's not exclusive to, and since it didn't say anything, I think it's open to us to extend it. Within the CTU, in fact, typically when we say Caribbean, we do not just mean the CTU member countries, right? Because we've worked with countries like Puerto Rico. Haiti is not a CTU member country, and the French territories as well. The Dutch territories, although St. Martin is a member, Curacao is not, but Curacao, the Curacao regulator is one of our non-state members in CTU. So we have an open concept of Caribbean that we didn't specify in this particular case. Yes.
I think one of the most important low-hanging fruits is the ATU, the African Telecommunications Union. I mean, I do a lot of work with them, and they always speak about coming together with the Caribbean. I mean, if you look at a place like Nigeria, 200 million people, 111 million internet connections. And they want to do the movie business with us. And they want to do the music business with us, because Afrobeat and soca and dancehall and reggae, those are the catalysts that allows telecom to be used. So to that extent, because if most of the people in the Caribbean, when they trace their roots, it goes right back to those people. There's a natural desire to link with them. Because of course, if you look at a country like Nigeria, it has 6 undersea cables, but they only use 5% of it.
The capacity.
Yes, exactly. And that's the natural partner in terms of the demographic dividend. Because if you look at this country, Trinidad and Tobago, is only 1.3 million people. Africa is 1.3 billion. So you need a demographic dividend and you need a digital dividend. And for that, the Caribbean is very low in terms of global competitiveness under the WEF. So in terms of the UN SDG goals number 17, which is global partnerships, the CTU can be the tail that wags the African lion. Because you have so many brainy people here. We are so well trained, but we don't have relationship equity beyond the Caribbean. So we have to establish that.
Right. Okay. So you are making a case then to not just look Caribbean.
Right. Put a policy in place to take advantage of your cultural roots. Because everybody does that except us. We look north, we don't look east and west.
Yeah.
And I think that is very important because they have already established the fact that they would like to work with us because of our intellectual capacity. As we do with oil and gas. We already do it with oil and gas.
Yeah.
We already do it with reggae. All right? So I think in terms of justifying the expansion of the CTU in terms of revenue generation, one can look at huge demographic dividends, and the only one available is the same one that Facebook is using, the same one that Google is using. It's Africa, 55 countries, 1.3 billion people.
Mhm. Okay, I'm just studying how to incorporate that in the context of our internet governance policy framework.
Well, that's just saying implement the global partnership objectives of the UN SDG, because that's exactly what we are.
I'll put it on the bottom of this page. I'll continue it. Oops, lost it.
And that will tie us into two policies, the World Trade Agreement, General Agreement of Trade and Services, 1995, and the UN SDG goal number 17, January 1st, 2016.
What about the US? Sorry, what about the UN SDG number 17?
Goal number
4, Global Partnership 4?
Goal number 17 is global partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
which allows the CTU to become a global partner of the ATU, or vice versa. And we have also signed an agreement, every single Caribbean country under CARICOM
Okay.
and CARIFORUM.
And even this other one I put in here, ensure meaningful participation in global rulemaking on the internet, for the internet, I didn't find, or should I say, I didn't find a specific reference related to that in the introduction to the policy framework. So I think that's an idea we'd have to develop appropriately in an appropriate section. So I have it noted there, as well as this new one about global partnership. And in fact, that could possibly be a statement within the section on the aims of the policy framework, because in terms of the aims of the policy framework right now, it talks about being used for guidance in policy development in the Caribbean and so on. But it also did mention that it could also facilitate consensus, Caribbean consensus for discussions at international fora.
Yes.
So we could make it we could also make this reference to global partnership and so on at that same time. So that'll be in the section on the basis and the aims of the policy framework.
Right, because you need those votes in the UN.
Yeah.
The other one will be the GATS agreement, the World Trade Organization GATS agreement. The other one actually preceded the
yes,
SDGs.
it did. That's 90s now.
1995.
Okay. All right. So as I say, some of the ideas that have come here have to be incorporated in different sections, right? So they are being noted so that they don't get lost. This one, where we talked about the priority areas, I realized that in error, I didn't make additional any additional review of this one. It was just an error. I thought I was finished, but clearly I wasn't. Just to remind you, however, that in terms of the current 6 sections, we're looking to reword the one that talked about enforcement to say legal and regulatory frameworks. And there is a consideration to remember to include, as far as the connectivity priority, that it's not just broadband connectivity as relevant, but there is also the non-broadband that will remain relevant, like amateur radio and probably also some Internet of Things type access requirements. So we'll reword that appropriately. There was also a suggestion that maybe the first 2 infrastructure ones could be combined, but I would say not necessarily so, because the more physical infrastructure aspects is really at a different level, a different technical design level from the internet infrastructure, right? The IP addresses and all that sort of thing. So it is a different physical level, a different level in the technical analysis. So we could maintain the separation there. The public awareness, we amended the ICT for D to ICT for SDGs, and we'll make sure we have actions for academia regarding internet governance. Actually, we do. I checked that one. In the existing policy framework, when we get into the details of that public awareness section, there are actions for academia related to identification and development of appropriate training programs and so on. So it does exist, yes, Tal.
Speaking of ICT for SDGs, if you could go back to the other slide, the previous one.
Guiding principles?
Yes. So we have SDG 17 here, but I would like to recommend, so under the SDGs, there's 17. Each one is broken down very specifically where you could prioritize what action you're fulfilling under the SDG based on its objectives, right? So I would also recommend that we look at SDG 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure.
Yes.
Possibly to go through SDG 8 under its objectives, to see decent work and economic growth. And of course, 10, which is reduced inequality.
So that 8, 9, and 10 in addition?
Yeah. But as I said, they are very comprehensively broken down where you could recognize where you are doing work in or plan to do work in. And while you quote the specific SDG with regard to policy and certain action, you could actually quote the specific objective under the SDG. So you don't have vision creep and all those things, scope creep.
Okay. Plus. All right. Right. I think the way it was written, it was looking like global partnership was all of those things, but that's okay now? Right. All right. All right. Okay, good.